The Director of Public Prosecutions warns police officers to carry out their duties with integrity. That's our top story in our Barbados Today morning news update for Friday, March the 2nd. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Thanks for joining us. This country's Director of Public Prosecutions has issued a sobering warning to the latest batch of police recruits to execute their duties with integrity. Donabab Agard, QC, cautioned those graduating from the Regional Police Training Center at Sewell Christchurch last evening to protect their character rather than their reputation. She told them their character is who they are when no one is looking, while their reputation is who people perceive them to be.
When you go into the police force and you start your first day and you go to a home of, suppose, a suspected drug dealer and seize their packed drugs, will you, as a police officer, slip some of those drugs into your pocket and later offer it for sale? What of your character then? Will you, as police officers who go to a home with a complainant who has complained that her husband, who is a police officer, has beaten her, will you be the kind of police officer that tries to coerce that complainant not to proceed with her report? What about your character?
The DPP said while such scenarios may be easily answered with a resounding no, now that the police officers were fresh out of training, she urged them to reflect on what their responses would be if things were not going their way years down the road.
However, what may happen 15 years from today when you may be overworked and underpaid, when nobody appreciates the functions and role of a police officer in your country? What will your character be then? I would encourage you to remember this day when your goals are clear, when you know what the esteemed organization for which you studied and trained hard represents.
In other news now, government and the unions representing public servants could be back at the bargaining table anytime soon, with the Ministry of the Civil Service yesterday hinting that the Freundlich Stewart administration wanted progress made in wages and salaries negotiations before the upcoming general election, constitutionally due by June. Permanent Secretary Alison Fort told Barbados Today yesterday he had been given a fresh mandate which he declined to disclose that will be sent out to the three main unions, that's the National Union of Public Workers, the Barbados Workers Union, and the Congress of Trade Unions and Staff Association of Barbados early next week. Fort would not say if the pending poll would influence the timing of the resumption of the talks, but he dropped a strong hint that all sides could be back at the negotiating table before the election.
The elections will have to be at least 21 days away, and I'm sure that my thing will come in less time than that. It should come next week. So it wouldn't really have any bearing on the elections, not from my perspective.
Would you be giving them a day to resume, so to speak?
I would meet with as I said, the three unions that the three workers representatives that I normally meet with would be the NUPW, the C2SAV, and the BWU. I wouldn't be able to meet all of them on the same day. And then maybe in my communication with them would determine if and when we continue to meet.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Welcome back with news from the region now. The police force in Antigua and Barbuda has taken action against 5 of its members in connection with the escape of a murder accused Delena Forbes. Deputy Commissioner of Police Atlee Rodney said the officers face internal charges of neglect and if found guilty by a police tribunal could be fired.
We had 5 officers, but over on the scene at that time. where the allegation against them is that they had a prisoner in their custody, and out of their neglect, he escaped. So that's a plain way of putting it from the piece of legislation that we have. So the allegation against them now is that they allow him to escape from negligence. That will be determined by a tribunal if they are guilty or not guilty.
Venezuela has postponed its upcoming presidential vote to May the 20th in a move cementing an opposition split as socialist incumbent Nicolas Maduro seeks re-election despite an economic crisis and global censure. The National Election Board said it had pushed the vote back from the original date of April the 22nd following a pact between Maduro's government and some opposition parties. And on the global front, the tumult of the past week in the U.S. has fueled a deep and seething anger within President Donald Trump, and commentators suggest that it's one which allies and aides say has escalated as he faces a new gauntlet of problems, including the encroaching Russia investigation. For instance, the commentators point out that Trump's soothing communications guru is leaving. His obstinate attorney general has turned openly defiant, and his son-in-law and senior advisor was stripped of his security clearance at the behest of the chief of staff. Short-lived communications director Anthony Scaramucci said the morale in the White House is terrible.
The reason why the morale is terrible is that the rule by fear and intimidation does not work in a civilian environment. And so here we are. It's messed up. It'll be up to the president to figure out if he wants to fix it or not. If he doesn't,
well, the question is whether or not the president
is
contributing to the turmoil.
I predict more departures.
When you talk about morale, what does that mean? What do you think is going on?
Morale, there's a culture of intimidation. People afraid to talk to each other.
Coming from the president? They're afraid of the president?
No, I think it's the chief of staff.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook. We are also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Have a fantastic day.